There we go. Cut.
Action.
Action.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that cut. All right. Hey, Matthew.
Hey.
Can you tell me where we are today? What city are we in?
So we're coming to you live and direct from New York, Nueva York. And we are specifically in my home borough of the Bronx. And we are rocking South Bronx Unite hats because today we are proud to culminate and wrap up an amazing learning exchange visit between P3 Initiative and South Bronx Unite is a member of this amazing initiative of members from across the hemisphere who are doing amazing environmental justice, green space equity, and grassroots organizing systems change work. And we're, as much as we are here to host, we're also here to learn from these different amazing groups. And I was just asked how I felt not too long ago by a comrade, and I told them that my cup feels full because I heard so many great things and was so inspired. And, I'm a bit, like when you hear so much inspiration, it can, maybe you might feel a little tired after
Yeah,
that. So I'm
yeah.
grateful that we're here at this beautiful cafe for a little afternoon pick me up. This cafe is selling great, organic coffee straight from La Isla Encanto, PR, which, I'm glad that, speaking of our comrades, La Colectiva Feminista en Construcción is here with us to be a part of this whole Learn Exchange visit. We've learned a lot from them, and so
Okay.
that's where we are. This is the best borough in New York, and I'm proud to have you all here.
That's great. Yeah, and we are so happy to be here. I'm gonna let you have a sip of that, but I think we want to learn more about you. So maybe do a little introduction on yourself. What type of work you do, and how you came into what how did you arrive here today? Pretty much.
Oh wow, that's a loaded question, but
Okay.
an important question. I mean, I'm a Bronx kid. This is where I came into the world, and before myself was my mother, who immigrated to New York. She's from the Caribbean, from a small island called St. Kitts and Nevis. So it used to be a former British colony, and before that we had the Kalinago and the Arawak, and culturally we are very similar to Barbados and Trinidad, and the population is mostly people of Afro descendants. And so, my mother came here and, from nothing, from great poverty, and, instantly became a part of the Caribbean diaspora and always dreamed of becoming a nurse. And anyways, I just grew up seeing her contribute a lot to the community and the community looking out for us. And so that sense of community and wanting better for the community has always been kind of instilled in me. My father was in a labor union, and so growing up, I would go to labor union meetings and marches and protests in Manhattan, and kind of had a consciousness at a young age that everyday people can affect change in a society, in our city. And in a place like New York, you just see so much like labor movement and social movements happening. So I was aware about these things at a young age, and I'm grateful for that. And I mean, from there, I mean, like any other young person, you go through life, you go through ups and downs, you try out different things. I didn't decide to be an organizer when I was young. I tried a lot of different things, So let's fast forward to college. I didn't study politics or sociology or economics. Like, I studied marketing, which in a way is helpful today, but for the movement. But back then I wasn't thinking about like being a part of the movement. And fast forward to 2016, The period from 2014 to 2016, that's when the primaries were happening for the presidential election. And for me, that was a kind of a light bulb moment because I switched majors from marketing to public policy and started to become more involved in volunteering for political campaigns, going to like public community meetings. Um, at the time, I moved for college up to Albany, and so I was learning a lot about living in a smaller city and about the history there. And Albany is like a mini New York City. It's the state capital of New York, and it's 2 hours north of New York, but it's very diverse there as well. And they also dealt with redlining and a lot of systemic disinvestment. And from there, fast forward, I started to work in politics and was working in the state legislature, like on environmental policy on the inside, like not working for a specific elected official, but working in the central staff that helps all of the elected officials of the majority party. And so we were not only trying, but we were successfully implementing landmark like climate legislation, one of which is the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. They call it the CLCPA. This legislation like was enacted into law and mandated that the state by 2030, 2040 reduce XYZ percentage of emissions. And that was a huge deal. And to see like all the advocates and organizers from New York City, from across the state, everyday people, like, your neighbor, it could be, coming to Albany and affecting that change was really inspiring for me. And then the pandemic happened. And oh my goodness, that was absolutely a transformative moment, not only for myself, but for so many people out there. And I was inspired by mutual aid organizing and all the folks who were filling a void that the government was not filling, and really directly meeting people's needs. And that inspired me to go into urban planning, to study that and get another degree and all of this stuff, but really to work in the community side of things. And through that process, I came back home to New York, back to the Bronx. And while I was studying the urban planning and community organizing, and getting involved in community organizations at the time, I met our former director of South Bronx Unite, and we instantly clicked. I was so inspired at the time by Community Land Trust and was working for other community land trusts in New York. And he was like, Matthew, we got to have you on our team. Like, you get it, and you can do a lot for the organization. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see South Bronx Unite grow so much in the last few years. It's been growing way before I joined. I have to acknowledge that they have amazing founders and all of that. But as an organization, we recently just started to grow a lot.
Yes.
So that's been amazing to be a part of, and more to come.
Great. Yeah. So you're mentioning this group called South Bronx Unite. It's an organization right here that's based in South Bronx in the neighborhoods of Port Morris.
Yeah.
And Mont Haven and Port Morris and Mont Haven. There you go. Yes. And your role in South Bronx Unite is director, or yes.
So I started off as, a community organizer.
Yes.
The title was so long.
Yeah.
I know you remember those. It was like Green Space Equity and Community Land Trust Organizer, something like that. And then now it's I'm directing planning and development.
So I know that South Bronx Unite, you all have a lot of environmental justice campaigns such as air quality, and one of them is also the Green Space Equity. You're kind of mentioning Green Space Equity Committee, Park Equity. Can you speak a little about what does Green Space Equity look like in Bronx right now?
In the whole state of New York, called Riverdale. And this community has mansions, they have luxury high rises, and anyway, a lot of affluence there, and private schools and boarding schools, and they have the highest level of tree canopy in the city. They also have ranked towards the highest for available park spaces. And no surprise, they rank towards the bottom in asthma cases. And when we talk about urban heat island, they have the lowest index. On the flip side, here in the South Bronx, due to historical environmental racism and a whole bunch of things, redlining and just a lot of disinvestment, this area does not enjoy the same amount of available trees and green spaces, and as a result, no surprise, we have 30 times the national average in asthma. 1 in 5 children suffer from asthma in this community, and it's our responsibility to, when we talk about green space equity, to rectify that issue, to bring about more healthy parks and community gardens and greenery in the neighborhood in a way that's equitable too. We don't want to, fan the flames of green gentrification and displacement. There is a lot of gentrification happening now in the South Bronx due to its proximity to Manhattan, and a lot of people being priced out of Manhattan. We have an affordable housing crisis that we can't ignore in the green space equity movement. Housing justice, can't exist in a silo. It's directly connected with these issues that we care about in the green space equity world. And the last thing I'll just mention is, in the 70s and the 80s, when there was when the Bronx was burning, as they say, and when there was a period of just great systemic failure and neglect and arson, and landlords were literally burning down buildings so that they can make a quick buck. And the government was not doing anything to help. Communities were on the brink of falling apart, but it was also the community that came together to rebuild it back up. And by that, people organized like tenant associations, built back buildings, and created all kinds of things like affordable housing for sure, supportive housing, you name it. Some of the Bronx's earliest nonprofits came out of that time. And also community gardens, a lot of community gardens that were created by the Latinx community, by the Black community, Caribbean community, et cetera, you name it. And these were spaces where, there's a lot of, in the South Bronx, what we call casita gardens. You see all these community gardens with casitas that were created by Puerto Rican immigrants and et cetera. And these places became thriving hubs of community life, of events, of music, of culture, of food justice, and people, as I mentioned earlier today, wherever they came from, whether it's an island, whether it's somewhere in Central America, a lot of people remember feeling a connection to the land and to nature and to be able to grow healthy food. And then coming here and you're in a food desert, where can you go to have that kind of connection? And the community gardens became that for a lot of people. So green space equity is also that strong legacy of people creating something out of nothing in the South Bronx.
You talked a lot about the interconnected issues of environmental justice, green space equity, even housing, and just a feeling of people belonging in space and place. Right? I guess thinking about all of that, thinking into the long future, what are your hopes for South Bronx, for the South Bronx community in terms of all of that? What is the mission, and what do you dream of for this community?
Oof, man.
Doesn't have to be super specific. Maybe stating values, or how do you imagine? What does that? How do you imagine people living in that place?
Definitely. I mean, I want us to build such a force that we never see like any kind of extractive development ever happening again in the neighborhood, and that will take a lot. It will take continued organizing, obviously, and movement building, etc., base building, all of that hard, necessary work. It will take a lot of partnerships as well. I mean, today we had a great conversation on this acknowledging the framework that exists, but also abolishing what needs to not exist anymore. And so while we're like going down that journey, there's things to handle with the land use and with urban planning. And now we have a new mayor, Zoran Mamdani, and a lot of conversations are happening and reforms are happening in government. He's made all these deputy mayor appointments, and in the past there used to be a deputy mayor for economic development. Now he's calling it the deputy mayor for economic justice. We actually met with her yesterday after spending the day with P3, and she was there like, I'm here to help you.
Great.
I'm here to help you get the city-owned land that you want to get.
It's
I'm
amazing.
here to help you develop the waterfront and
Wow.
help you develop green workforce development opportunities and create a city. Zoran talked about us creating publicly owned grocery stores, and I'm here to help you do that. And we were like, wow, really? So I think we're very eager to see how this mayoral administration continues to expand and develop. And as we continue to do asset mapping and come up with a community plan for the neighborhood. I mentioned today, like, we have 8 principles for community development and how development should occur. Housing development, when it comes to the neighborhood, needs to be for the income of the people living here. And there needs to be true partnerships where when a development comes to a community, there needs to be benchmarks that are adhered to. So we have all of these things like the Commission on Racial Equity, and developers now, when they develop on any plot of land that triggers a rezoning. Sorry, I'm getting very urban planner.
That's so good. That's so good.
wonky.
I'm sure we're going to have urban planning audiences. So
They have
good.
to, those developers, they have to produce a racial equity report.
Yes.
Does the racial equity report, is there a requirement that report be presented to the
Right.
community and to the community board? No. And that should change, because by changing that, enforcing, requiring dialogue, a lot of fruitful outcomes could happen. And I'll pause there.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you for sharing your vision for South Bronx. And I think in that process, you also shared a lot of the incremental work that South Bronx Unite is already doing to get there, right? And you also mentioned that I also want to give credit, like the existence of a local administration, your new mayor, who seems to be really supportive of this work, does not just appear overnight. It's a testament to true grassroots organizing, really hard and long-term grassroots organizing to build a movement for people to support that type of leadership, right? So it all adds up, right, towards that great big vision. So thank you for that. I think the last question that I will ask you, I think in your organizing journey and your journey towards this vision, your own personal journey, you mentioned that there have been moments in your own journey where, like, there's this light bulb that's come up, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I wanted to ask you, in your recent experience organizing, you as the organizer now, where have you seen that? Can you give an example of how you've seen that light bulb spark for other people that you are organizing with? Yeah.
Wow. Definitely when you're doing the organizing work, it's the most rewarding thing. You're out there, you're speaking with people, you're building genuine relationships, all of those beautiful things. And the one thing that I helped contribute to was the creation of our local action committee, which, I was happy to share about in this learning exchange. And the founders of South Bronx Unite, they did great work to organize campaigns against Fresh Direct and for Hearts, and did a lot of great work through that time. And then from that time to the formation of like South Bronx Unite today, where we have an office, where we have staff, there was, because the founders have families and, just had a lot of milestone moments in their family, private lives. Not necessarily a pause in organizing, but definitely not the scale that they wanted at the time. So by Arif bringing me on board, and this literally became my daily obligation, right? So was able to see a need that we need to have regular meetings, really involve people in a regular, consistent way. And through doing that, all these amazing people, became a part of the movement.
Yeah.
And I am so happy to say, like, the passion has been there since the beginning of the local action committee and continues to grow. And I'm so glad that South Bronx Unite, we care a lot about leadership development. And so to that end, Mel, who you all know and who we've been talking with in this visit, she started in the local action committee and now she's senior organizer and she's leading the local action committee. Jada also started in the local action committee. We really, see talent when we see it, and we want to make sure that we allow people to grow and, assume leadership and be a meaningful part of this work that we're doing. And so those are the light bulb moments that come to mind immediately. And I want to continue to expand on leadership development in all assets of the work that we do. That's continually a work in progress. For example, when we do meetings, I want folks to, because this is what I've learned from other organizations, and I have to acknowledge on this conversation, everybody has a political home.
Yes.
For me, like one of my political homes was an organization. They're currently called Our Bronx, but for years they were called the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition, and they're based in Kingsbridge, Bedford Park, Fordham area. That's where I'm from. And one of the biggest, they do a lot of tenant organizing, housing justice work, health justice work, and also that area of the Bronx has the nation's largest armory, and it looks like a castle, and it's like over 600,000 square feet, and for the community, it's always been a symbol of opportunity, because in the 80s, 90s, it was decommissioned as a military site, and was largely abandoned and left underutilized, only used for like movie sets and emergency management scenarios. And we're talking about a community up there that had like a lack of classroom spaces and community spaces and a lot of poverty, etc. And so I just learned a lot from them and this great organization and how they do leadership development, because in all of their meetings, community members are helping to co-facilitate. They are helping to create the agenda. They are helping to form the vision. And I'm proud that we are really like centering that in South Bronx Unite and figuring out how can we really meaningfully embed that into all the things that we do. And that's a work in progress. It doesn't happen overnight. But that's why I'm grateful to have these opportunities to talk with other amazing organizers about all of these things that we care about, green space equity, but also how do we base build, how do we develop leadership is all a part of the conversation.
That's great. Yeah. You called them sharing light bulb moments. But I think in your description, you gave me a very beautiful image of just like floodlights, it's like you sharing the light with others and really in that way, like a beautiful image of light driving out darkness. So I'm leaving our conversation with that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I lied, one more question actually. So if you could speak to our audiences about how they can keep up with you, how they can, if they're local to South Bronx, how they can get involved. And if they're like maybe not local, they're part of the hemisphere or just interested in this work, like how can they make a difference, you know?
Absolutely. So yeah, definitely. Like if you're here locally, like the best way is like follow us on social media at South Bronx Unite. Check out our website. We are always posting updates on our events, on our meetings, community meetings, and different volunteer opportunities. So that's a great way to get to know what's going on. And then through coming to our events, you can sign up for our email list and et cetera, and join our local action committee, which, as I just explained, we meet on a regular basis, a monthly basis. And through these meetings, we are strategizing. We're talking about issues that are occurring locally and citywide. And, we try to keep things actionable. So it's not all talk. We talk about what are the next steps, what are the things that we need to organize around to address and better, the situations that we were seeing. So these meetings are about all of the campaigns that we work on, green space equity, waterfront plan, the fight for clean air, et cetera, et cetera. And usually our meetings are the first Thursday of each month. And so definitely come through. And our next Earth Day event, which is always one of our biggest events of the year, is happening on Saturday, April 18th at one of our local community gardens, Maria Sola. So we hope to see you there. And yeah, thank you for your interest. South Bronx.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks.
Thank